A lot of news there for the New Orleans Saints swirling around. And one of the biggest things that we've heard over the last couple of days is the Saints aren't bringing in a veteran quarterback. They are going to roll with their young guys. And so, like, for you and, having your ear to the ground, like, what's the latest you're hearing there? Did they get close to bringing in a veteran quarterback? It just wasn't the right one. Do they truly believe in their young quarterback room that, has a rookie, a second-year guy, and a third-year guy?
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of a terrifying room a little bit. I mean, just even in the sense of just having like a good caddy around. I mean, who's that guy? Who can be the Andy Dalton, the McCown to the Breeze? I think just having that guy around, especially with the young quarterback, is kind of important. You look at their staff though. Kellen Moore's 35. He played quarterback in the league. Tolzien played quarterback in the league. Nussmeier did. I mean, there's a lot of guys with experience, but look, you guys would know this better than me. I just think that there's probably a benefit to having somebody around that you can ask a question to where you don't feel like you're getting judged by your superior, your boss. When you're a new guy, you're a rookie, trying to find your way around, maybe being afraid to ask that dumb question. It's different when it's a peer. And I think that's missing in that group. I would, if I identify Shuck as the quarterback for my team for the future, at that point, I'd be willing to do anything necessary to help his development. And I personally think that guy can be helpful to that group, not even necessarily in a, hey, this guy's going to go play, like just someone that can show him the way around. And, Rattler's a year two guy. Jake Haener's been around for 3 years. Those guys are players that still see their candle burning brightly with the flame all the way up. And, I think that there's some guys you get to the end of your career and you understand, hey, I'm going to make more money and be in the league longer if I'm willing to be, more helpful. If I put this other guy ahead of myself, that's my role in the league. Now, I'm not saying Rattler and Haener won't do that. I'm not saying they won't have that perspective. I just think it's more likely that you find it with somebody else. And, I do think that is a hole on the roster right now.
It's actually a great point that you make. I didn't even really thought about that. We talked about bringing in somebody that's got maybe 6-7 years of time in the NFL. Maybe they've got 10, 15 starts. It doesn't even have to be somebody as established as an Andy Dalton, but just bringing somebody in that could be, a different mindset in the quarterback room because he's been through different things. And you mentioned like asking questions, and I didn't even think about that. That's a great point because I know for me, like when I was a rookie, I was going into a room that had LaDainian Tomlinson, like one of the best running backs to ever do it. We had a Darren Sproles. And so like instead of asking the coach, well, I'm going to lean on those two guys. Like, hey, I acted like I knew what I was talking about in this pass protection meeting, but I really need you to kind of help me break it down. And those guys were great, and they would do it every single time. Man, I didn't want to ask the coach ever because I didn't want the coach to think like I didn't know what I was doing. And when you're in a quarterback room that's super young like that, you have to ask the coach. And everybody's in a competition too, so they want to help you out.
Yeah, they got their knives out. Like they want to see you sink. It really, any job, you don't ever want to go to the boss and hey, he just talked about this and I don't understand what the hell he's saying at all. Like you don't want to do that. They're going to think you're an idiot. I mean, you're trying to win a job. You want to look like the most put together person. So if there's someone that you could just go to and not have to fake it with, and again, I think it comes in the form of that older guy that's had his shot, has been around, has fought, and is just kind of understanding of where he is and is realistic about the career trajectory at that point. And, I would be looking for it, and I'd be cool with letting the battle play out for a little bit, but you get, a couple weeks into camp, Shuck's your guy, and you're starting them week one. I'd be willing, to make a trade to try to bring somebody in. Cause like, I really feel like that's an important piece of the puzzle. And, that dynamic's missing a little bit.
So when you see Shuck out there with the other quarterbacks, Nick, he obviously looks different. I mean, Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener are just not big guys, and they're talented guys. They got great arms. I don't want to, besmirch their name here, but Tyler Shuck looks completely different in his uniform. Like, was that something that you think could be felt? Like when you go out there and you watch those guys all compete when they go into training camp, like it is kind of odd to say because you should base it off talent, but he looks different. He looks the part, and it's somebody that you drafted, obviously 40th overall, your highest draft choice at that position since the 70s. Like, it's going to be hard, I think, for those other two guys to win over this quarterback battle because I think Tyler Shuck has some advantages that maybe they can't even help.
No question about it. I mean, that was probably the biggest difference. You know, we're used to seeing, you know, guys that are 6 feet tall going back
True.
for 20 years.
True.
There was the brief Jameis Winston interlude, the little 7 game stretch there where you got some hype, but you know, Taysom shorter, Rattler shorter,
Yeah.
Andy Dalton's not like a huge guy. So it definitely looks completely different. And Thursday will be the first time we get to look at a OTA, and we'll be able to see these guys kind of, you know, back to back to back. But I thought I saw it kind of, you know, just right away with him, just with the movement skills, the arm, the ability. You know, his most impressive moments in the rookie camp were when he was on the move, on the bootlegs, when they're going through, you know, some drills where they're stepping over some pads, throwing the ball off platform on the run. Like, his physical traits, I think, just pop immediately. And you know, I think they should. You know, when you watch them, you go back to the college stuff. It's really just when things get messy. I don't think you can really go through it and say, you know, he's lacking arm talent. He can't move. You know, even when you go back to Oregon, like going way back, when they were actually moving him around more, having him do more design runs, like the ability there pops off the screen too. You know, I don't know if at Louisville they were kind of trying to protect him from injury or what. I saw a McShay interview where he talked about how they kind of took all that stuff out of the offense for him. If they can introduce that stuff back in, I think his physical traits are obviously, you know, going to be something that stands out. And they should. I mean, he's picked 40. Spencer Rattler was picked 150. I mean, obviously different drafts, quarterback talent, you know, dictates where people go. But, I mean, that's a 110 pick difference. However you want to try to equate that. I mean, the league's telling you kind of, you know, who has more natural physical gifts. And, I think he has, you know, every chance to be good. If this offensive line is what they think it's going to be with Fuaga and Banks and, you know, McCoy and all this investment in it, it should be a good group if everything comes together as they think. If you can protect him, you know, I think that there's a chance for him to actually be good, but it is going to come down to a lot of the stuff around him. And really, you know, I don't know how much a quarterback can recalibrate that mentality of how they react when they're under pressure. You know, maybe there's a little more confidence in it. I remember I was covering the Patriots at the time, and Jarrett Stidham was kind of similar to that. Someone with like all the, you know, he had all the tools, but he kind of panicked a little bit under pressure. He never quite figured it out. You know, maybe Shuck can. Maybe they can protect him to where it doesn't become a huge issue. But that is going to be the thing that I think determines the quality of his career.
What about the news over the weekend? And it could be internet rumors, it could just be nothing, and it could be one team wanting and the other team not listening. But Chris Olave to the Steelers, that was something that kept finding its way on my timeline. Any truth to that rumor?
I'm always reluctant to shut these things down because a GM once told me when I called up about a rumor, he was just like, man, like these things tend to be like self-fulfilling. Like if people start making stuff up, like people see it, and then all of a sudden they start making calls, and then somebody might make the call and say the right thing, and all of a sudden, you know, you're willing to accept a trade that you weren't even thinking about before.
Right.
So I wouldn't say Chris Olave is untouchable. I think if someone offered the right thing, they would trade him, but I think the cost would be really high.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea of trading your best receiver when you're trying to bring along a rookie quarterback and try to make him work, that doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And then the other thing is like, have the Steelers been a super aggressive team this offseason? I mean, they've made a couple moves. They don't even have a quarterback at this point. I mean, it's just kind of one that, I don't know. I don't think it makes a ton of sense to me. But look, at some point, if this team isn't good, like, but I think you got a year to kind of make this decision. But if you're not good, your quarterback doesn't hit, and you are in the full-on rebuild, I think next offseason it would make a lot of sense to trade him off because all of a sudden he isn't on the same timeline as you. But if Shuck shows promise, all of a sudden I don't care about paying a wide receiver $25 million, you know, or whatever it takes,
Right.
Because you aren't paying your quarterback now. That's kind of how it goes. Like Pat Mahomes is on the rookie contract. You're paying every wide receiver in the world. All of a sudden you got to pay Pat Mahomes, and Tyreek Hill's gone, and you got a bunch of receivers nobody's ever heard about. And it's on the quarterback to make them better. But those first 4 years, you know, I don't have a problem paying the wide receiver if I got to, because I'm not paying him.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there thinking, like, my only issue is, like, if you traded him now, like, you are just saying we are not going to be competitive this year just because That's one of my biggest question marks is the weapons. Like, okay, the offensive line, we think it's going to be solidified. AK, I still think has some juice in the tank. I like the young running backs. You've invested in tight end. Like, receiver, you were playing with dudes that were like Uber drivers last year. Like that can't
Yes.
happen again. And so like that was my only like reluctant, like I was reluctant to give myself over to the Steelers and the rumor just because like Nick, if he's not out there, you're signaling to everybody we're tanking basically, which the Saints have been reluctant to do.
Yeah, and look, that's fine, but I think there's also like a line where you got to prioritize the development of your quarterback
Yeah.
in some respects too. And man, like you're taking away the one guy that can run. Well, I mean, I guess Cooks can kind of too, but like Olave is really the one guy that can run every route. He's your best receiver. He's sure-handed. Like he's the one guy that might be able to elevate your quarterback at least a little bit. And taking him out of there, man, I don't know. Like I'm all for tanking and rebuilding and getting the best pick possible. I think there needs to be some of that in their thought process too. Like, but there has to be a balance of where, like, how is Tyler Shuck developing confidence in himself if he can't complete a pass? Like, I think you just need one guy that he feels really good about throwing to. And to me, that looks like Olave, but maybe it could be Cooks. Maybe Shaheed develops a little bit more. He's somebody else that's kind of, he's still, some of those things in the playbook haven't been all the way there for him. Maybe they are now. But Olave is the one guy that feels like he has everything put together. And man, I would be really reluctant to take him off this roster when I'm trying to make a second round quarterback work.